Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News, an Indian perspective on All India Radio. This is Nishit Kumar, and with me is Vaibhav Jyotsna Srivastav, bringing glimpses of major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. As the world fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of caution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain social distancing, and focus on hand and face hygiene. The headlines. Roar of Indian warplanes reverberate in the Bangalore sky on day 2 of the Aero India show. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh underscores active role for India in the Indian Ocean region at the IOR Defence Ministers Conclave. India draws parallel between violence at the Red Fort on 26 January and the January 6th US Capitol Hill incident. External Affairs Ministry says internet restrictions necessitated to prevent further violence. Myanmar military announces blocking of Facebook and other messaging applications in the country until February 7th. Year-long birth centenary celebrations of doyen of music Pandit Bhimsen Joshi begins today. And in cricket, a resurgent Team India takes on England in Chennai Test tomorrow. The Indian warplanes dominated the Bangalore sky today on the second day of the Aero India show. The light combat aircraft Tejas, advanced light helicopter Dhruv, the aerobatic teams of Surya Kiran and Sarang enthralled the audience. Speaking to media persons today, the chairman and managing director of Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, R. Madhavan, informed that they have received the order to deliver 83 LCAs Mark IA yesterday, and the first aircraft will be delivered in March 2024. The entire project will earn business for 463 vendors across the countries, and MSMEs alone will earn 6,000 crore rupees for supplying the subsystems. Mr. Madhavan said that each LCA Mark IA will cost 309 crore rupees, and due to its competitive cost, Southeast Asian countries have evinced keen interest in purchasing them. More from our correspondent.
Indigenous production of LCA Mark 1A has 52% raw materials procured, with HAL chairman has said that this will be increased to 65% in the coming days. The director of R&D in HAL, Arup Chatterjee, has informed that HAL has invested 400 crore rupees to develop a combined air defense system comprising of a mothership and an unmanned aerial vehicle that can be controlled remotely by the mother aircraft. The unmanned aerial vehicle will penetrate into enemy territory and plan attacks with the help of missiles and drones. To be ready by 2024-25, these machines, named as CATS Warriors and CATS Hunter, are set to shatter enemy facilities without human casualties. HAL is also developing an unmanned helicopter that can supply ration and fuel to base camps at the height of 18,500 feet. Sudhindra, AIR News, Bengaluru.
The Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal R.K.S. Bhadauria, has stressed on the need to operate together in times of distress. Speaking at the Chief of Air Staff conclave on the sidelines of the Aero India show in Bengaluru, he noted that technological advances are changing the threat matrix with a noted evolution of air power. Saying that the nature of warfare has significantly changed in the last few years, he noted how armed drones and unmanned aerial vehicles were used in Armenia, Azerbaijan and Syria recently. He said India is closely observing these developments and focusing on developing capabilities in the unmanned and optionally manned platforms. Defence Minister of India, Rajnath Singh, has said that India is ready to supply indigenous weapon systems to the Indian Ocean region, IOR, countries to synergize the resources and efforts in the Indian Ocean. Delivering the keynote address at the Indian Ocean Region Defence Ministers Conclave in Bengaluru today, he said Indian aerospace and defence industries offer an attractive opportunity for the foreign companies to collaborate. Emphasizing on fostering peace, stability and prosperity in the Indian Ocean region, he said India, with vast coastline of 7,500 kilometers, has to play an active role for peaceful coexistence of all the IOR countries.
The ancient Indian concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam means the whole world is a family. The Indian Ocean region has always enjoyed a place of prominence in global strategy. Many extra-regional powers, nations have established a presence in the region to safeguard their strategic interests and assist Indian Ocean region littorals in overcoming challenges in the maritime domain.
He underscored the importance of Sagar, that is security and growth for all in the region, as the basic theme of India's Indian Ocean policy. Raksha Mantri said that focus must be on security, commercial interests, connectivity and fight against terrorism. He felt a need to join hands for unified efforts to counter threats in this region. The ambassadors, high commissioners and senior officials from 27 countries in the region participated in the conclave today, organized on the sidelines of the Aero India show. Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Karambir Singh, Chief of Army Staff, General M.N. Naravane, Secretary Defence Production Rajkumar and Defence Secretary Dr. Ajay Kumar were present.
Britain launched a trial to assess the immune responses generated if doses of the COVID-19 vaccines from Pfizer Inc. and AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals are combined in a two-shot schedule. The British researchers behind the trial said data on vaccinating people with two different types of coronavirus vaccines could help understanding of whether shots can be rolled out with greater flexibility around the world. Initial data on immune responses is expected to be generated around June. The trial will examine the immune responses of an initial dose of Pfizer vaccine, followed by a booster of AstraZeneca's, as well as vice versa, with intervals of 4 and 12 weeks. Recruitment for the study starts on Thursday with over 800 participants expected to take part, the researchers said. That makes it much smaller than the clinical trials that have been used to determine efficacy of the vaccines individually. The trial is looking to recruit people over the age of 50 who may be at higher risk than younger people and have not been vaccinated already. AstraZeneca's shot is also being tested in combination with Russia's Sputnik V vaccine, and British drug maker's research chief has said more studies on combining vaccines should be done. The COVAX initiative for equitable global access to COVID-19 vaccines has announced that Bangladesh will receive 12.79 million doses of the Oxford or University AstraZeneca vaccine by June this year. The COVAX published its first interim forecast on Wednesday. COVAX is co-led by the World Health Organization WHO, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance and the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations. The vaccine is being provided to countries in proportion to their population. Apart from Bangladesh, in South Asia, India will get 97.2 million, Pakistan 17.2 million, Nepal 2.2 million, Sri Lanka 1.6 million, and Bhutan and Maldives 1.08 lakh doses of the vaccine each. According to the statement released by the COVAX, it will distribute 337.2 million doses of the vaccine all over the world. The first deliveries are expected to begin in early February. The COVAX aims to reach at least 3% of the population coverage in all countries in the first half of the year to protect the most vulnerable groups such as the healthcare workers. This is All India Radio giving you the world news.
In a positive development, spokesperson for the External Affairs Ministry of India, Anurag Srivastava, has informed that the Chinese government has allowed the change of crew aboard MV Anastasia. 16 Indian sailors on cargo ship MV Anastasia were struck in limbo as China had denied crew change for the ship. The ship has been on anchorage near Safedia port in northern China since 20th September.
I have been briefing you on the efforts made by our embassy to address the humanitarian needs of Indian sailors on board MV Anastasia. And after a sustained follow-up by our embassy in Beijing, the Chinese central authorities have conveyed their clearance to the local foreign office in Tangshan and to the port authorities for the transfer of the crew of MV Anastasia. This information has also been shared with the shipping company, we understand, has submitted a request to the concerned authorities and is coordinating with them on the modalities to effect this crew change. And we hope that the crew change is effected at the earliest.
Mr. Srivastava also commented upon the recent statement issued by the U.S. State Department on the protesting farmers in India.
I have a response to this. We have taken note of comments of the U.S. State Department, and what we would say, it is important to see such comments in the context in which they are made and in their entirety. As you can see, the U.S. State Department has acknowledged steps being taken by India towards agricultural reforms. Any protests must be seen in the context of India's polity and the ongoing efforts of the government and the concerned farmer groups to resolve the impasse. India and the United States are both vibrant democracies with shared values. the incidents of violence and vandalism at the historic Red Fort on the 26th of January have evoked similar sentiments and reactions in India, as did the incidents on the Capitol Hill on the 6th of January, and are being addressed as per respective local laws. With regard to internet access in certain parts of the NCR region were therefore understandably undertaken to prevent further violence.
The spokesperson said that the issue of agricultural reforms is a domestic matter.
In terms of my response, what I will say, Aditya, Siddhant and Sanjeev, our statement of yesterday is very clear and I do not want to add to it. What I will say broadly is that the debate on reforming the agricultural sector is an issue addressed by the Indian democratic polity. Those following it should have an informed and objective view. We are making sure through our activities this is what happens.
Mr. Srivastava also replied to media queries on the recent decision by the Sri Lankan government to withdraw from a tripartite agreement to develop the East Container Terminal ECT at Colombo.
I have a statement in response. As is well known, the governments of India, Sri Lanka and Japan had signed a memorandum of cooperation in May 2019 to develop and operate the East Container Terminal of Colombo Port under a trilateral framework. We sincerely believe that the development of infrastructure in Sri Lanka in areas such as ports and energy from India and Japan will be mutually beneficial proposition. Our High Commissioner in Colombo is in discussion with the government of Sri Lanka, including on the importance of adhering to international commitments.
When asked to comment on reports of overtures by the Pakistan Army Chief towards India, the spokesperson said that the onus is on Pakistan to create a conducive atmosphere for the same.
Look, our position on this is well known. India desires normal neighborly relations with Pakistan in an environment free of terror, hostility and violence. The onus is on Pakistan to create such an environment.
Speaking on the progress made in the de-escalation in the situation at the Indo-China border in Ladakh, Mr. Srivastava said the two sides are in constant talks.
Elizabeth and Madhurendra, I had given you an update last week, and this was on the basis of the press release which was issued after the 9th round of the senior commanders meeting held on the 24th of January. The two sides had a candid and in-depth exchange of views on disengagement along the line of actual control in the western sector of China-India border areas, and we have also agreed that the next will be held at an early date. Our objective remains to ensure complete disengagement from all friction areas along the LAC in the western sector and to restore peace and tranquility. We will continue our discussions with the Chinese side through both diplomatic and military channels for achieving this outcome at an early date.
Mr. Srivastava commented on the situation in Myanmar and India's engagement with its eastern neighbour.
You know that India and Myanmar are neighbours. We have close cultural and people-to-people ties. These ties have been bolstered by trade, economic, security and defence-related exchanges. So we are therefore monitoring the situation very closely in that country. We are also engaged on the issue as a member of the UN Security Council. As per our neighbourhood first policy, we attach priority to our neighbours. You know that we have extended assistance to Myanmar in its fight against COVID-19 by providing medicines, test kits and vaccines. We remain committed to continuing our humanitarian support for the people in Myanmar in mitigating the health and economic impact of the pandemic.
The spokesperson also elaborated on the upcoming phases of India's Vaccine Maitri initiative to supply made-in-India COVID-19 vaccines to neighbours and key partners.
We have so far supplied vaccines to Bhutan, Maldives, Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar, Mauritius, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, the UAE, Brazil, Morocco, Bahrain, Oman, Egypt, Algeria, Kuwait and South Africa. So this is by way of further update. I had provided you an update last week also. These supplies have been made under grant. The supplies which have been made under grant assistance amount to 56 lakh doses, and supplies which have been made on a commercial basis, they amount to over 100 lakh doses. So this is the list of countries we have already supplied on grant as well as on commercial basis. And our external supplies of vaccine is an ongoing process depending on availability and domestic requirements. We will continue to supply in the coming. In terms of countries where our supplies will reach, the next set of supplies are for CARICOM countries, which is the Caribbean, Pacific Island states, Nicaragua, Afghanistan and Mongolia.
Mr. Srivastava reiterated Prime Minister Narendra Modi's assurance made in a telephonic conversation with Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, that the perpetrators of terror attack at the Israeli embassy would be brought to justice.
The investigation into this terror attack is still underway. The security at the Israeli embassy and other locations has since been strengthened. You would recall that PM Netanyahu on 1st of February conveyed his strong condemnation of the attack and assured that all measures will be taken to ensure the safety and security of Israeli diplomats and the premises of the embassy. He also conveyed that every effort would be made to find and punish the perpetrators of the attack. So that is the information that I have, which I can share with you.
The Delhi police today said it has not named anybody in the FIR on the creators of Toolkit, which maligned India and was shared by environment activist Greta Thunberg. Speaking to reporters, Delhi Police Special Commissioner Praveer Ranjan said the FIR has been filed and investigation is underway. Our correspondent reports a document called Toolkit came into the public domain yesterday, hinting at an elaborate international conspiracy against India.
The document shared on Twitter mistakenly by Greta Thunberg shows how Rihanna's and other such tweets were not organic but plan of a larger PR campaign to malign India. They were copied word to word as mentioned in the toolkit. The document listed that the protesters have no plan beyond getting the 3 laws repealed. The people behind these sinister international alliances are those who want to wage a war against India economically, socially and culturally. The intent of the people behind the document has been inadvertently been revealed by themselves. Anupam Mishra, AR News, Delhi.
The External Affairs Minister of India said that India has identified cooperation in the maritime domain as a priority under the ASEAN-India Strategic Partnership. Speaking at the virtual prize distribution ceremony of the ASEAN-India Hackathon, the minister praised the organizers for having successfully organized the ASEAN-India Hackathon on such a grand scale.
ASEAN-India Youth Cooperation forms a key component of ASEAN-India Strategic Partnership. The hackathon complements our other ongoing youth-centric initiatives. We have engaged more than 2,500 ASEAN youth over the past decade under the student exchange programs. This is in addition to special courses for young ASEAN diplomats, exchange programs for young farmers, media exchange programs, and programs for young parliamentarians.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a telephonic conversation today with His Excellency Mathumela Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa. The two leaders discussed the continuing challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and, in this context, the vaccination campaigns being undertaken in their respective countries. Prime Minister reiterated to the South African President that India's considerable productive capacity for pharmaceuticals and vaccines would continue to serve the needs of all countries, including those of Africa. The two leaders also discussed possibilities of collaboration between India and South Africa in various international forums to facilitate access and affordability of vaccines and medicines. The leaders agreed that officials of both countries would remain in touch over the coming days to exchange experiences and explore potential for collaborative efforts against the pandemic. This is All India Radio giving you the news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter at AIR News Alerts.
3 steps to stay protected and stay safe from COVID-19. Wear face mask, 2 gaz ki duri to maintain social distancing, maintain hand and face hygiene.
The military regime in Myanmar has announced that Facebook and other messaging applications will remain blocked in the country until February 7th. The Ministry of Transport and Communication issued a directive on Wednesday to all mobile operators, international gateways and service providers to block Facebook, according to reports. The ministry accused that Facebook is being used by people to spread fake news and misinformation, causing misunderstanding among people. The largest telecom provider in Myanmar, Telenor, announced that it has decided to comply with the directive. Though Facebook services are still possible to access at some places, network disruption tracker NetBlocks confirmed that Facebook, Messenger and WhatsApp service are restricted in Myanmar on multiple internet providers. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said on Wednesday that the UN will do everything to mobilize all the key actors and the international community to make sure that the coup in Myanmar fails. Almost half of the 53 million population of Myanmar uses Facebook. Over the last few days after the military took over power in Myanmar, Facebook had emerged as an important platform for people to show opposition to the government. Images of people banging pots and honking cars as a show of opposition to the military government were widely shared on the social media platform. India has welcomed the extension of the new Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty START Nuclear Arms Control Treaty with Russia for 5 years. In a statement, the External Affairs Ministry of India has expressed hope that this will promote dialogue and cooperation to help address international non-proliferation and disarmament issues. The treaty, which first went into effect in 2011, limits the United States and Russia to deploying no more than 1,550 strategic nuclear warheads each and imposes restrictions on the land and submarine-based missiles and bombers to deliver them. The United States has extended the new START Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty Nuclear Arms Control Treaty with Russia for 5 years. Announcing the move on Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said it made the world safer. He said an unconstrained nuclear competition would endanger us all. In the Netherlands, the International Criminal Court, ICC, in The Hague today convicted former Ugandan warlord Dominic Ongwen of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Ongwen was accused of 70 counts of crimes against humanity, including murder, rape, torture, sexual slavery, and using child soldiers between 2002 and 2004 in northern Uganda when he led a brigade of Lord's Resistance Army, LRA. He was found guilty of 61 out of 70 counts. Ongwen, a commander of the Lord's Resistance Army, is the first member of the LRA to appear before the court. The conflict in Tigray region of Ethiopia could trigger broader destabilization in the country. UN Aid Chief Mark Lowcock told yesterday to the Security Council as he warned that dire humanitarian situation in the north was set to worsen. Hundreds of thousands of people in Tigray have not received help, and the United Nations has been unable to completely assess the situation because it does not have full and unimpeded access, according to Lowcock's notes for the closed virtual briefing of the 15-member Security Council.
The year-long birth centenary celebrations of the doyen of music, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, will begin today. A two-day event has been organized in Mumbai to commemorate the timeless legacy of the great musical maestro by Ritvik Foundation for Performing Arts. The event, Swar Bhaskar 100, will culminate today with Jayatirth Muvendi's rendition of Panditji's compositions. Arya Sangeet Prasarak Mandal has organized a musical program called Abhivadan at the Ganesh Kala Krida Manch in Pune, Maharashtra on Saturday and Sunday. Let us celebrate the maestro's life by listening to some of his famous songs from the Prasar Bharati archives.
Ram rangi rangali mana Ram rangi rangali rangale 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 Ram rangi rangali Atma rangi rangale मन आत्म रंगी रंग ले मन राम रंगी रंग ले मन
A former MP of the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party BNP and two others have been convicted by a local court for attack on the convoy of Sheikh Hasina in 2002. The Satkhira court sentenced the former MP Habibul Islam Habib and two others to 10 years imprisonment in the case. The court also convicted 47 others to various jail terms in the case. Out of 50 accused, 34 were present in the court. The remaining 16 were declared absconders. In 2002, the convoy of Sheikh Hasina was attacked in Kalurao, Upazila, when she was returning to Mogura after visiting a freedom fighter's wife in Satkhira. She was the opposition leader at that time. Sheikh Hasina escaped unhurt, but several other Awami League leaders and workers sustained injuries in the attack. Initially, the case was dismissed on technical ground, but it was reopened in 2014 when charges were framed against 50 people. Reacting to the verdict, the opposition BNP said that the government's desire has been reflected in the lower court's verdict. The senior Joint Secretary General of BNP, Rukul Kabir Rizvi, told media in Dhaka on Thursday that the ruling Awami League is indulging in an act of revenge against its opponents, reports the news agency UNB.
Now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. New York Times writes that Democrats move ahead on stimulus as Biden shows openness to changes. UK-based The Sun reports that several families were evacuated after a landslide in Nottingham. Los Angeles Times quotes a poll saying that COVID-19 relief is top priority for California voters. The Sydney Morning Herald writes that Australia secures 10 million more doses of Pfizer vaccine. Qatar-based The Gulf Times reports that Pakistan began administering a Chinese-made COVID-19 vaccine to frontline health workers yesterday, but the country is still months away from a mass rollout.
Moving on to sports and cricket, the first test match between India and England will begin at the historic M.A. Chidambaram Stadium at Chepauk in Chennai tomorrow. It will be the first international test match in the city without the physical presence of cricket lovers. Through the years, test cricket has a usual set of admirers in the stadium, and mostly the last day of the test would be packed with fans. This is the final series for both India and England in the current ICC World Test Championship.
Scores of cricket fans will have to be content with watching the match over television, which is a total miss for the players themselves. Cricket fans used to line up a week before the play to just gaze through the crevices of the compound walls of the stadium to watch the net practices. Whenever the bus carrying the players enter the stadium, there will be a crowd to wave with them even before the play. The entire area looks deserted now as the spectators will not be allowed due to COVID reasons. The recent hero Washington Sundar's family will also have to give it a miss, though the second test match will be opened up for the public. The fun and thrill will be like missing the first show of a blockbuster. Joy, AIR News, Chennai.
Now before we close, a quick look at the headlines once again. Roar of Indian warplanes reverberate in the Bangalore sky on day 2 of the Aero India show. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh underscores active role for India in the Indian Ocean region at the IOR Defence Ministers Conclave. India draws parallel between violence at the Red Fort on 26 January and the January 6 US Capitol Hill incident. External Affairs Ministry says internet restrictions necessitated to prevent further violence. Myanmar military announces blocking of Facebook and other messaging applications in the country until February 7th. Year-long birth centenary celebrations of Doyen of music pundit Bhimsen Joshi begins today. And in cricket, a resurgent Team India takes on England in the Chennai Test tomorrow. India is celebrating the 151st birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Before we end, let us listen to his favorite bhajan, Vaishnava Jan, by artists from Israel. And with that, we end this bulletin. See you at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.